Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian McIntyre over at the SEAI. I'm sorry I can't be with you there today, but you have a really good lineup, so I won't be missed at all. I'm going to talk today about the traditional homes pilot that we've just recently opened up for application. Um, so you've probably heard a really good presentation from Carol Raftery on the Tartan Housing Guidance document, Improving Energy Efficiency in Traditional Buildings. So this probably would have been covered already. But when we talk about traditional buildings, we're talking about a wide variety of traditional buildings throughout the country. So this mainly includes those built with solid masonry walls of brick, stone, or clay, using lime-based mortars, often with the lime or earthen-based render finish. And you can see some examples on the right-hand side that's taken from the guidance document. And they also typically have single glazed timber or metal framed windows and a timber framed roof, usually clad with slate, but often with tiles, copper, lead, or less commonly corrugated iron or thatch. We know there's about 270,000 homes in Ireland that were constructed prior to 1945 and were predominantly, though not all, of traditional construction. So we can see an example here. This on the left-hand side, we have a traditional building wall example, and the upgrade of this would be covered under the Department of Housing guidance, improving energy efficiency in traditional buildings. And on the right-hand side, we would have a typical insulated modern cavity wall, and the upgrade of that would be covered under SR 54, which is a code of practice for energy retrofit in residential buildings. So our traditional homes pilot, the pilot itself has been underpinned by the guidance document and improving energy efficiency in traditional buildings, which Carol would have talked about. So the works have to be delivered in accordance with that document. And it's really important for us to understand the technical aspects, the materials, the products, and the associated costs of the solutions that are required to upgrade traditional homes. Because it will allow us to, it'll inform future support for improving energy efficiency of traditional buildings and how that might evolve, because we need a better understanding of the different, like I said, all the different elements and ultimately the cost as well. It also allows us to support the Climate Action Plan targets. Now, currently the targets are set at 500,000 homes being upgraded to a BR B2 or cost optimal equivalent. Now, those targets have been set based on carbon emission savings. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have a significant uplift of a building that doesn't achieve a B2, that doesn't contribute. As an example, I took the build to last case studies from Dublin City Council website, and again, look, it's a very small subset of 7 or 8 houses, but the average pre-works had a BR of an F, the average post-works had a BR C2, but it was a saving of 213 kilowatt hours per meter squared per year on average, and an average saving of 7.8 tons of CO2 per year. And we also know from a whole life cycle perspective that retrofit can produce lower CO2 emissions than demolition and rebuild. And demolition of a lot of these buildings that have been standing for 100 years or more is just not necessary. And we just need to make use of what's there and improve the performance of the home. So one of the key things within the pilot is the role of a traditional building professional, and that's the person who's essentially going to be captain of the ship. They're going to be the person that designs, specify the works, and oversees the works being carried out, the works that they have designed and specified. So the person that qualifies would be either an RAI registered architect, an SESI registered building surveyor, or an Engineers Ireland registered engineer with either with appropriate qualifications or competencies in conservation. And they'll be involved in the project from the outset. So they'll be the first person you're going to get in touch with about what to be done to your house. And they must have professional indemnity insurance in place to cover the project type and scale. And ultimately, they're going to be signing off on the declaration works for traditional homes at the end of the project. In terms of what we're looking for from projects, it looks like it's largely in line with the one-stop shop. So pre-works BR of B3 or worse, post-works BR of B2 or better, a primary energy uplift of at least 100 kilowatt hours per meter squared per year. The works must be carried out in accordance with improving energy efficiency in traditional buildings guidance document, and the traditional building professional is required to design the works and specify the materials to be used. Having said that, specifically in relation to the B2 and the 100 kilowatt hour per meter squared per year uplift, projects that are delivering a significant upgrade but are falling below that B2 or the 100 kilowatt hours per meter squared per year uplift can be discussed with SEAI to review the eligibility prior to works. I mean, you'll all know in a lot of cases there are limitations, whether it be there are certain things you're not allowed to do because it's an architecture conservation area, it may be a protected structure, or there's just physically you cannot achieve the levels of insulation, for example, a wall, because you might be creating a condensation risk by going too low. and that in itself can limit the level of uplift or the outcome at the end. So there are certain things we will review. We're trying to be flexible. We're trying to learn from this as well. Also, the main barrier that we'd had previously was the requirement for Irish Agrement certification for certain materials, specifically around wall insulation. Now we've removed that barrier, but that doesn't mean that materials aren't required to meet the definition of proper materials in Part D, the building regulations. They are. That still stands. It just means that you have to look at alternative ways of demonstrating compliance, and that's why engagement with the local building control officer is going to be important from the outset. Now we have minimum standards like we have with all our programs in terms of the level of energy performance or the insulation that you would need to achieve across the board. Again, we're trying to be flexible with this as well. So if the traditional building professional specifies a higher U value for any measure on the basis that it's the most appropriate solution for that element, then we can still review this and approve it for funding. So for example, we've set a value of 0.5 watts per meter squared Kelvin for wall insulation, but it may be a case that the traditional building professional says, realistically, because I've done the analysis on it and you're going to be creating condensation risk if you go lower than 0.7, for example. And we'd say, look, fair enough. If that's the situation, then so be it. But the key for us and key for everyone is to find the right solution. We don't want people to start using the wrong materials to be chasing a better U value or a better rating if it's the wrong thing to do. So ultimately about finding the right solution for that house that's not going to create any risk. Similarly, we have for windows, we have allowed secondary glazing. Obviously, in some instances, you won't be able to replace the windows or even replace the glazing. So we're allowing for secondary glazing. And we can achieve a U value of 2.4 for that. And if you were able to replace the glazing, then if we can achieve a U value of 2.1. So again, like I said, in terms of the B2 and the 100 kilowatt hour per meter square per year uplift, we are allowing a certain flexibility where appropriate around U values within the pilot. Another key element of it is that all grant applications must be accompanied by a retrofit plan in accordance with ISEN 16883 2017. Again, this is in chapter or section 3.2 of the Improving Energy Efficiency in Traditional Buildings guidance document, and it's a core principle of how you retrofit a traditional building. So again, the guidance document is guidelines for improving the energy performance of historic buildings, and we have the 10 steps of that process, retrofit plan. So again, early engagement with the local authority building control officer is important. That's set out in step 8, but again, it doesn't mean it shouldn't necessarily be done before that. It is also really important, as was alluded to already, that any retrofit works do not irreparably damage the historic building fabric or undermine the building's character. In developing the retrofit plan, early engagement with the local authority building control officer is important, and where the works would impact on the character of a protected structure, a proposed protected structure, or a building located in an architectural conservation area, then early consultation with the local authority architectural conservation area is also important. The aim should be to improve the energy efficiency as far as is reasonably practicable, taking care not to prejudice the character of the building or increase the risk of long-term deterioration of the building fabric. So again, it's about picking the right solution or specifying the right material and the right solution for that particular wall. So if you've done your building condition assessment and so you probably have done a hydrothermal assessment and you've determined what the most appropriate solution is that's not going to create a condensation risk, for example, then that's what we want to see. It's not about chasing ratings or doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, but it's not about chasing ratings or better performance. It's about doing the right thing for the fabric of that building. And again, the traditional building professional is central to it, so their advice and their guidance should be followed throughout. The levels of funding are exactly the same as through the one-stop shop because it's being delivered through the one-stop shop mechanism. The one difference there, or flexibility we have, is that the Windows grant amount can be assigned to secondary glazing if that's the most appropriate solution for that house. I fully accept that there are limitations in terms of the level of funding being available. It'll go a lot further for a more modern building in many cases than it would do for a traditional building because of cost of materials and the professional cost of consultancy, the conservation consultancy of your traditional building professional and doing all that pre-works assessment like the building condition assessment, any hydrothermal assessments. That's a lot more involved than we allow for here in this mechanism. But this in order for us to get something off the ground and running and to be able to provide support and learn what needs to be done to traditional buildings, then this was the model or the mechanism that would allow us to do that sooner rather than later. I know from experience that it would take a lot longer if we were trying to build a more bespoke program, and potentially then we would have to just review that in time because we didn't pitch the support at the right level. So it's only for 100 homes in the first instance, so it allows us to learn and allows us to evolve the support we're offering. So look, I fully accept that there's limitations in terms of how far that those grant amounts will go, but it is a mechanism that allowed us to get it off the ground and running sooner rather than later. So in terms of the application process, the traditional building professional is appointed by the homeowner. So they both work together to contact a one-stop shop, and they're listed. The ones that are interested in engaging in traditional buildings are listed on the website. The one-stop shop demonstrates the qualifications and criteria to SEAI for their traditional building professional. An application is created on the portal and flagged as a traditional pilot. And when it's approved, then the letter of offer is generated and issued to both the homeowner and the one-stop shop. So the last thing then is the traditional homes declaration of works is signed off by the traditional building professional. The other element of it is that in the absence of Irish Agreement certification, as we mentioned earlier on, for certain materials, and again, it's primarily wall insulation, it's important to ensure that what you're using is considered proper material, is in compliance with Part D, the building regulations. So early engagement with the local building control officer is important. So that's it from me. Again, sorry you couldn't be there today, but I hope you have enjoyed the rest of the event, and I possibly will talk to you again sometime soon.